a birthday trip to a Hawaiian cliffside, a necklace given at breakfast, and then a rock in his hand. This husband spent months researching cliff deaths and divorce folders, but he didn't count on two strangers hearing his wife's screams over the edge. The case of Ariel Coig starts now. Meet Ariel Coig. Ariel was 36 years old in early 2025. Little information is known about her background. However, what is known is that she had a very successful professional life. She has a degree in nuclear engineering from Penn State, and on top of this, she has an MBA from the University of Pittsburgh. By 2022, she was working as a nuclear engineer and was doing so remotely shortly after getting this remote job. She flew out to Hawaii to live there, and she wasn't alone. She immigrated there with her husband, who she had originally met on a dating website back in 2016, and they married in 2018. The couple had 2 young sons together, and her husband's name is Geed Kick. Geed was 46 years old in early 2025, so around 10 years older than Ariel. By his own account, he was born in South Africa, and then he moved to the United States with his parents at the age of 14. Beyond that, public details about his upbringing are quite limited. However, like Ariel, we know that his professional life was very successful too. He was a doctor of medicine. By the time he was living in Hawaii, he was practicing as an anesthesiologist. Before his marriage to Ariel, he had been married for 15 years in what he described as a separate chapter of his life. But with Ariel, he said that they had built their dream life together in Hawaii. However, the marriage entered a crisis in late 2024. Geert later said that he had noticed warning signs earlier, possibly as far back as September or October. But things came to a head when he accessed Ariel's WhatsApp weeks later. He found extensive personal messages between her and her coworker named Jeffrey Miller. When confronted, Ariel did not try to deny that the relationship had crossed a line. She described it as an emotional affair, but she maintained that it had never become physical. But to Geed, this was still a deeply harrowing betrayal. The contact was incredibly secretive. Ariel and Jeffrey had used the word "halu" as a sign when Geed was nearby. This was borrowed from a nuclear fuel acronym. Like many people in this situation, Geed became intrusive. He surveilled Ariel daily. Ariel described Geed as going through her phone almost every day and monitoring her emails. He pushed her to end all one-on-one contact with Jeffrey Miller and raised the possibility that she should quit her job entirely. But then Geed tracked down Jeffrey Miller's wife through LinkedIn, and he paid to obtain her email address. And then he contacted her about the relationship between his wife and her husband. He also purchased a voice-activated recording device, believing that Ariel was continuing to deceive him. Before too long, there was no trust left, and Geed had tried to maintain his control. But after some time, the couple began listening to a book about recovering from infidelity. They entered individual therapy and couples counseling. They also took a family holiday and agreed to try for another 2 more years. Things were tough, but on the surface, the marriage still had somewhat of a path forward. But little did she know that something else was brewing. Geed had been spending time on infidelity forums and relationship advice threads online. He had created a Dropbox folder titled Divorce, and by late February and early March of 2025, his online searches had begun moving towards hiking routes on the island of Oahu. Now, this might sound nice, a bit of physical activity and some bonding with his wife, but his searches weren't in that context. He began searching for terms like danger, falls, cliffs, and death. By March of 2025, the marriage was stable and said to be through the worst. Family members noticed that there was some tension, but also a sense that things might be getting better. However, tension was still building inside of Geed, so he booked a trip to Oahu for Ariel's birthday. When they arrived, the morning gave little sign of what was to come. Ariel and Geed had breakfast at their hotel. He gave her a necklace and a birthday card, and late that morning, they drove to the Pali area to hike. The route towards Palapuka was narrow in some places. It has some dangerous steep drop-offs and signs warning people that sections of the trail were closed and unsafe. At some point on the trail, Ariel became uneasy near the edge. She began to feel a little bit dizzy, so they stopped for a break and took a photograph. It was at this point that the atmosphere shifted. The couple reached a section of the trail that brought them close to a sharp drop. Realizing how dangerous the drop was, Ariel stepped back from the edge. But as she did this, Gad grabbed her by the upper arms and forced her back toward it. Ariel then looked up at her husband. Something in his demeanor had greatly shifted. He appeared to be now incredibly angry, and he was pushing her towards a drop that was only a few steps away. So instead of staying upright, she dropped low, throwing herself to the ground, clinging to the dirt to stop herself from going over. The couple struggled into the terrain, scraping across uneven ground along the cliffside. He kept trying to push her forward, but when this failed, he allegedly pulled out a needle and told her to hold still. Ariel knocked it from his hand. He reached in again, producing another vial. She didn't know what it was, only that he was trying to inject her, trying to subdue her. She kept fighting, and at one point she bit his forearm. Then she scratched him, and then she squeezed his testicles. All the while she screamed for help over and over again. She also tried to reason her way out. She brought up their children. She told him people knew they were out hiking. She also mentioned that he would go to jail, but Guard ignored her. He told her that no one would hear her and that no one was coming. Then when his plan didn't work, Guard picked up a rock and he threw it down on her head, striking her again and again. It is estimated that she was hit in the head around 10 times. The blows opened up deep wounds in her scalp. Rock fragments became embedded in the tissue. Her hand was injured in the struggle too. Her thumb was fractured. Within just minutes, her face and head were covered in blood. Blood splatters were all over Gad's clothing. The scene was chaotic, and Ariel was hanging on for dear life. Ariel believed that her life was going to end there and then. However, what stopped it was by pure chance. Two women were hiking in the area, Sarah and Amanda. The two women heard a woman screaming, so they ran toward the sound to try and help. What they found was Ariel on her stomach, blooded, crawling towards them, telling them that he was trying to kill her. One of the women saw Guard standing over her with a rock in his hand and saw at least one blow come down. This unexpected interruption changed everything. He froze, and that gave Ariel the opening she needed to crawl away from him and towards the women. They pulled out their phones and called 911 and began working to get Ariel off the trail as quickly as possible. But she couldn't stand, and she couldn't walk. She had to scoot herself and slide down the trail, guided by the two women. As the two women looked behind them, Guard was gone. When the three women reached the lower area, a parking attendant wrapped her head to slow the bleeding until the emergency crews arrived. Paramedics rushed to the scene. She was then transported to the hospital and treated for her wounds, which were described as extremely severe visually. Guard, on the other hand, did not stay. As Ariel was being helped down the trail, he disappeared into the surrounding area. The day that had started with breakfast and a birthday necklace had become something else entirely. Once the 911 call came in, investigators had a head start. The two women who found Ariel could identify the man who had been with her on the trail, and of course, Ariel knew him as her husband. This removed the usual early uncertainty about a suspect. Honolulu police issued a public notice that very same day, naming Guard Koig as the man responsible. The authorities described him and his clothing and warned the public not to pick him up as he was on the run. The search for Guard lasted most of the day. He was eventually found near Poly Highway and arrested at around 6:45 that evening after a brief on-foot pursuit, and the arrest even turned physical. Officers later described wrestling him to the ground and striking him to bring him under control. In the days that followed, investigators built out both the physical account of the assault and the background of the marriage. Ariel gave a detailed statement covering the grab, the push towards the cliff, the syringe attempt, and the rock strikes. She also explained that she had been somewhat unfaithful and talked about the months of surveillance and jealousy that had preceded the trip. And a key piece of evidence came from Guard's adult son from a previous relationship. He told the police that his father had FaceTimed him twice during the hours between the attack and the arrest. He explained to investigators that he saw blood spatter on his father's shirt. Guard told his son that he blamed all of this on Ariel's affair, said that she wouldn't be coming back, and told him to take care of his younger brothers. Guard also told his son that he had tried to kill Ariel and that he was thinking of jumping from a cliff before the police could even catch him. With Ariel in hospital and Guard in custody, the police began to examine the crime scene. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Investigators recovered a rock made of lava from the scene. DNA tests confirmed that the blood belonged to Ariel. With that said, the syringe allegation was harder to pin down physically. Ariel consistently described an attempt to use a needle or syringe, and early accounts had suggested more than one. But strangely, no syringe or vial was ever recovered from the scene. A few days after the attack, Ariel found Girad's backpack in Maui. It contained his identification card, empty syringes and needles, and anesthetic medication, including propofol. On the 26th of March 2025, Gard Koig was formally charged with attempted murder in the second degree. He was held in custody, and a no-contact protection was put in place covering Ariel and the children. Gir had entered a not-guilty plea on the 7th of April 2025 and did so through his lawyer. His bail was initially set at $5 million. Court proceedings began in March of 2026. The prosecution laid out a straightforward narrative. They explained to the court that Gard had used Ariel's birthday trip as the setting for a layered attempt on her life. First the cliff, then the syringe, then the rock, clear signs of premeditation. The defense, on the other hand, offered a fundamentally different account. They claimed that there had been no premeditated plan and no syringe. And as I mentioned before in the video, Gard had confessed to his son Emil on the phone that he had tried to kill Ariel. But now the defense were claiming that this confession never even occurred, despite the fact that his own son had said this. They even tried to make the claim that Ariel had been the true aggressor, and that Girad had acted in self-defense. Amanda and Sarah, the two women who encountered the attack, were also questioned. Both of the women were nurses, and they gave the jury an outside view of the scene. Amanda described seeing a man over Ariel with a rock, and Sarah described Ariel crawling towards them, and remembered Girad's face as cold and expressionless. However, Sarah had initially selected the wrong person from a photo lineup, and Amanda clarified that she had only seen one strike. This rocked the prosecution's position slightly, but it ultimately didn't change the impression given by the women. On the 24th of March, 2026, Ariel testified exactly 1 year after the attack, and on her birthday, she was still visibly marked by what had happened. She walked the jury through the events and also provided the emotional context that preceded them, the emotional affair, the months of monitoring and jealousy, the counseling, and the commitment to try again. The defense also used cross-examination to challenge both her credibility and the severity of her injuries. Medical testimony from the prosecution described crushed scalp tissue down to the skull with embedded rock fragments. The defense's forensic pathologist counted that scalp injuries typically bleed dramatically and can look far worse than the underlying damage. They claimed that the attack was more consistent, with 2 or 3 impacts, rather than the 10 that Ariel had claimed. Then the defense became optimistic when Emil conceded that he had paraphrased his father when he recounted Geert's confession. He said that it wasn't a stark quote admitting guilt. When Gard took to the stand, he gave the jury his account of the trail. He said that Ariel had shoved him towards the edge first, then that she had struck him with the rock, and that he had taken it from her and hit her only twice in self-defense. He denied pushing her towards the cliff, and he denied bringing or using a syringe against her. He also said that the FaceTime calls to his son Emil were goodbye calls as he was contemplating what to do with himself, and that they were not confessions. The defense also pointed to a dinner reservation the couple had made that evening in Honolulu. This was seen as evidence against a carefully premeditated plan. But then, under cross-examination, he conceded that a fall from that cliff could have killed Ariel, and that he wanted Ariel to quit her job and become financially dependent on him. His Google search history was then shown to the court. Searches of people who died falling from cliffs. On the 8th of April 2026, after approximately 1 day of deliberations, the jury rejected the original charge of attempted secondary murder. Instead, they convicted Gard of attempted manslaughter under extreme or emotional disturbance. When the verdict was read, Gard closed his eyes and lowered his face. Ariel was not in court at the time. The sentencing is set for the 13th of August, 2026. This year at the time of recording. The defense have indicated that they plan to appeal. The recovery for Ariel was not quick. She later said that it took around 2 to 3 months. When she appeared in court a few weeks after the attack, she was seen wearing a headscarf with a bandaged cut above her right eye. Meanwhile, Emil cut off contact with his father and he sided with Ariel. Ariel moved quickly to protect herself and the boys. 3 days after the attack, she filed for a restraining order. She said she feared that if Gerard moved to Maui, he could harm her, the children, or other family members. And in May of 2025, she filed for a divorce. One thing that was never resolved was the syringe. It was and has never been recovered, although from what we know, it does sound plausible. As the case has unfolded, people haven't agreed. Some have looked at the relationship and argued that she brought it on herself, and others have pushed back, saying that nothing justifies what happened that day.